Thanks, folks, for showing up this morning. Actually believing that this event was going to take place. I think that probably the motivating force for where we now find ourselves today was that crane collapse out in San Francisco. And I understand that that was a motivating force, and some of you folks sat down and said, we got to do something about this, and you took the lead. OSHA went about its own business and did things in its traditional manner, but we have a lot of folks that are in the audience today that are part of this signing ceremony that really caused this operation to come to pass.
And it really is a tremendous honor to be standing here today on the occasion of the signing of this document. As Bruce said, some of us felt that maybe this day would never come. We're both relieved and very proud and joyful that it has. There's no doubt in my mind that this document that we're about to see signed today will have a tremendous effect, a profound and lasting effect on crane safety for a long time to come. I believe we're seeing a sea change in the way crane operations and crane operator proficiency is viewed in the industry. Every day as I serve the program, I'm in awe of the enormous contributions that have been made during the 10 years of evolution, that have been made during that time and continue to be made every day by, in most cases, volunteers who come from the industry, from all aspects of it, whether that be steel erection, crane rental, insurance, manufacturing, and so on. The signing of this agreement is really a validation of all of the hopes and efforts that folks have put into this process during those 10 years, and seeing the evolution of a valid and reliable assessment of an operator's proficiency must be a major contribution to crane safety. It's also an outstanding example of how labor and management, union and non-union, can work together in pursuit of a common goal, and that goal is, of course, improved crane safety. I'd like to congratulate OSHA and thank OSHA for their foresight and faith in this process. I'd like to thank Charles Jeffers and Bruce Swanson for pushing this forward, allowing this to happen, and recognizing CCO, and in so doing, recognizing the efforts of all participants that have taken place during this time. I think OSHA has done a tremendous service to the industry by recognizing the CCO program as meeting its requirements for crane operator competency. The net result can only be a reduction in crane deaths and injuries and accidents around the country on construction sites.
Again, thanks to OSHA, Mr. Jeffers and Mr. Swanson, for the recognition that you've given CCO. We consider this a milestone in the development of the CCO program, and as we've talked among ourselves, if you look where we have to go, what we hope to accomplish within the industry for crane safety, we still have a long ways to go. But if you look at where we came from 10 years or so ago, when we were literally papering the walls of the ATA building with many of the people that are here, including Bill and Tony, we've come a long ways. So this is one part of our development, but we still have a long ways to go, and we look forward to continuing working relationship with your people. We appreciate the involvement of OSHA to help us get where we are. There are many, many people in the industry that have participated in this program, from crane users. The crane manufacturing industry has been very supportive, both financial support and with manpower. I can't say too much about the fact that OSHA attended every meeting that we ever had and made comments constructive when we had a bump in the road. I also have to recognize Frank Hanley. His term in office parallels the development of CCO and the real progress that we've made. And in manpower and work, they've done yeoman duty and have been there at every step along the way.
The beginning of this actually goes back to the first documents that I have in my file is 1987. In 1989, the Specialized Carrier and Rigging Association was the group of people who primarily had most of the crane rental people as members, because it's 1,000-member organization now. That group of people and the board of directors decided that they would be the people that furnish the money and create that's what we now see as a National Commission for the Certification of Crane Operators. So they are the parents. They are the people that's responsible. Glenn Reekman's here today, the president of our organization, and another representative. And so I want to make sure that the SCNRA is recognized as being the parents that brought about this organization. There's been the support for it all along. When we went for our accreditation, our bylaws had to change to the point where we stood alone more than ever, but it's just kind of like everybody who has kids. You know, they grow up and they go out on their own, but you never remember, you never forget the fact that who your parents are. And so we're mindful of that. At the same time, we're here and very pleased to be here today. And thanks a lot for the support of everybody in every walk of this industry that you can imagine. And some of these days, we'll try to list a number of the man-hours that's been involved on how we'd recreate it. But it's been an enormous amount of time spent by many, many, many people. And again, thanks all those people who are willing to do this. Thank you.
Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Swanson, I'm very grateful for this day. I think we have come a long, long way. And this was an idea that I had many, many, many years ago. And I'm grateful to the specialized crane carry people because they helped me to get this idea out into the field. A lot of other contractors associations did not do that. But they did it, and I'm very grateful. I want to make sure that everybody understands that we didn't make this a union operation either. I made it very clear to everybody, and my representative sits on that board, Bill Smith, that we wanted this done across the board because I believe in safety, and I believe in safety very strongly. I operated all this equipment as a young fella, and I know the danger of people getting up into this equipment and being incompetent, not able to read charts, and not doing a very bare minimum things that should be done. I worry about cranes with 400, 500, 600 foot of boom that could be put down into a schoolyard or a refinery or something of that sort, and the danger would be enormous. So I think we have to do certain things to make sure that we cut those odds down, and I think we're doing that. I think what has happened now through the beginning of the specialized crane carriers, now the new group that has taken over, I am very, very grateful. And again, I would be very remiss if I didn't say I think that OSHA deserves a lot of credit because this will go down as one of the best things we've ever done in the field of safety. I think that we need more certification. I think a lot more equipment has to be certified. But as one of the previous speakers said, it's an enormous job. It's taken an awful lot of time with the operating engineers. We've given an awful lot of time to this that I hope we're recognized by people, and I'm happy to hear that we were recognized in the preliminary remarks. But it does take an awful lot of time. It takes an awful lot of work. But we feel it has to be done, and probably we're going to be on the road to doing certain other things. I think other equipment has to be brought into this immediately, such as tower cranes and things of that sort. They're dangerous pieces of equipment if they're not run by competent people. And I think that that's the next step. We have to move into that area. And then some of the other major equipment that we operate and you contractors handle, that also has to be, we also have to do things to make sure that very qualified people are running that equipment. So in closing, I'm very, very happy for this day. I think that everybody that's put time into this effort, people that have worked hard, made the sacrifices, to OSHA again, I say thank you. I think you'll all be happy that someday you can say that you were a part of this. Thank you very much.
To give perpetuity here an idea of what kind of support we have throughout the industry, let's go through the room and have some self-introductions by folks that are in the room as quickly and briefly as we can. Starting with you, Mr. Brown.
Tony Brown, OSHA Office of Construction.
Bill Smith, Operating Engineers, Director of Training, and also Commissioner on the CCO as well. Rick Baker, Phoenix Crane, Atlanta, Georgia.
Carl Springfield, Florida International University.
Denny Eckstein, Senior Director of Product Safety for Grove Worldwide. We're a manufacturer of mobile hydraulic cranes. I'm also a commissioner for CCO.
Paul Church, Mandeville Cranes Incorporated.
Kenny Shin, Cranex in New Jersey.
Celeste Fahey, Carpenters Union, works in the Health and Safety Department.
I'm John Foss, President and Chief Operating Officer of Grove Crane, with Denny here today.
I'm Ralph Riley, Director of Safety and Health with Associated Builders and Contractors.
Nick Yaksick with the Construction Industry Manufacturers Association, and pleased to be here supporting this effort.
Pete Clemar, St. Paul Insurance, Construction Loss Control Division.
Roger Oman, Director of Training for the Crosby Group.
Leo Carey, National Safety Council.
H. Marion Zettler, Deputy Director for Construction in OSHA.
Doug Williams, Buckner Steel Erectors and CompuCrane Incorporated out of North Carolina, and I'm here officially representing the Steel Erectors Association of America.
Rich Rossi, Anthony Crane Rental.
I'm Paul Zorich. I'm with RZP International Limited, Managed Crane Technologies. I'm also the chairman of the B30 committee, also serve as commissioner.
I'm Connie DeWitt. I'm Chief of the Safety and Occupational Health Office at the Army Corps of Engineers.
Sam Testerman, a Senior Safety Engineer with the Corps of Engineers.
I'm Pat Benham, U.S. Department of Energy. I manage the construction safety and hoisting and rigging program.
I'm Beth O'Quinn, Vice President, Specialized Carriers and Rigging Association.
Glenn Riekman with Riekman Transport, Granite City, Illinois, and current President of the Specialized Carriers and Rigging Association.
I'm Marcia Bond. I'm the representative from Exterior Assessment, previously NAI Block.
I'm Harlan Fair. I'm Chairman of the American Society of Civil Engineers Crane Safety Committee.
Thank you. Ray Pupor with the Building Trades Department, Heavy and Highway Division.
Phil Stemmer, Pico Energy, H-Bomb Atomic Power Station.
Wayne Amberger, Senior Instructor, Pico Energy.
I'm Tom Marple. I'm with the Directorate of Construction, Office of Construction Services for OSHA.
Louis Rowe. I'm with the Office of Construction Services for OSHA.
Dennis Kirk, General Counsel of the NCCO and also of the SCNRA.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's an impressive show of support for what we are about to do here. Just two quick comments I'd like to make before I turn this over to my boss. First, I know that some folks had to swallow real hard, Frank, with this concept, because when we certify people, not everyone is going to pass that test. We look beyond that and we see that the need for certification, the requirement for certification will cause people to get the training that is necessary to make the job sites safer. Sometime in the last year or two, Billy Smith shared with me some data from a study in Canada where crane fatalities in Ontario, Canada were reduced 53% once we got into a training and certification program. And with our goal, my boss's goal, with his boss to reduce fatalities in the construction industry by 15%, I would see this as a real important building block along that road. And I thank you once again. With that, Charles Jeffers.
Thank you, Bruce. And thank you, Frank, and Carson, and Graham, and Dave. I appreciate very much you all support for and making this happen. You're the ones who've been the drivers, you and many commissioners over here, and a lot who aren't here, and your other board members, the ones that really made this possible. I've got to tell a story before I get into this that give you a little perspective on my interest in it. Back in 1979, I was working with the North Carolina Department of Labor, and one of my jobs was to be the liaison with our General Assembly and help talk to them about what kind of issues there were in employment law and labor law and things that needed to be done. And of course, I was 29 and knew everything there was to know at the time. But a fellow who was head of our elevator inspection division at the time, Sam Wagner, and Carson, I don't know what you remember Sam Wagner or not. You got some North Carolina ties. Other folks may remember him. Anyway, he was the head of the elevator division in North Carolina. He says, you know, Charles, he says, one of the things that the North Carolina really ought to look at is some way to certify crane operators. He said there's some states that do it. He says we're having real problems in this state and nobody is effectively addressing it. OSHA doesn't seem to be able to handle it because it's a training issue, and OSHA hasn't been very good at handling training issues. This is 1979, I understand. He says, and maybe our elevator mechanics know as much about it as other folks in this kind of business, but it's really a problem out there with untrained operators, and we really ought to do something about it in North Carolina. Well, I regret to say that North Carolina never has been able to do anything about that, but it's stuck with me every time I get a report of an accident involving a crane, particularly when it comes from the crane being overloaded, not properly set up, and things you can attribute to the person operating the crane not quite being there, not quite understanding what it is he should be doing or she should have been doing. And it's always stuck with me that back in the 70s, at least for me personally, folks were recognizing this and saying to me to do something about it. And what a delight to be able to get here and be able to take credit for the work all you all have done in making this happen and getting a national program, a national certification program for crane operators. My sense, again, from my personal experience with it, is it's very much needed. Very important to make sure that the folks handling this equipment, which can have such major consequences for people walking around it, working around it, the public that's around it, for the operators themselves, how important it is that these folks be well trained, know what they're doing. And I'm delighted that OSHA can be supportive of what you have done. That we've found ways, I think, in the last 20 years here to become more aware of training issues, become more supportive, and more able to enforce training issues. And when we have a private sector group like the Commission, from industry, from labor, that has come together and said, this is really the best way to do things. Here's what we believe a person operating a crane should know, and here's a way we can recognize those folks that do know that have passed the test, that can prove themselves, that the government is then able not to have to take the lead and do everything ourselves, but in fact to refer back to this management labor group that has come up with a certification, and we can say to contractors, we require that your folks be trained, and if you can show us that they've got this certification from the Commission, then we will accept your word that they are trained and they've done the job. That's the way we can work together and make a difference. And I think this kind of partnership, if you will, has great promise. And I, again, want to say to you how much I appreciate what you all have done, what the commissioners have done, what the people who have worked on this for the past however many years it has done. And as Bruce said, I do think that this kind of certification will help us reduce the number of accidents that occur with cranes, helping us to achieve our overall goal of a 15% reduction of injuries and illnesses in the construction industry by the year 2002. If you don't know it, something we laid out a couple of years ago. We believe strongly in it. We're working with the National Safety Council, working with construction associations, working with all of y'all to make that happen. And I appreciate the kind of commitment that you have made to do this. Want to sign the agreement? That's what we're all here for. For those in the audience who haven't seen these are special pens, and they say OSHA NCCCO agreement, February 1999, celebrating the signing of this agreement.